Let's talk about budgets. Thursday, we are going to have that traditional thing of the cabinet secretary for health, for finance, the national treasury.
For health. Yes.
For the national treasury, the health of the country.
Yeah.
For national treasury and planning, going to the National Assembly, joint session of parliament, and reading something. We know what's contained in all those things. We know the budget policy. Mm-hmm. We know the expenditure estimates are before Parliament. We know the revenue-raising measures are before Parliament, and all. Parliament's daunting task to offer a balanced bill. That's what the headline in the Standard today is talking. MPs walk a tightrope on taxes and budgets. Okay. And as this is happening at the national level, there's a conversation that will also be happening at the county level shortly, because counties will also now be presenting their budgets. 400 billion shillings is going to counties, plus their own on-source revenue. How are they going to do this? Former governor and former chair of the Finance Committee of the Council of Governors, the former governor for Laikipia, Ndiritu Muriithi, is our guest. He's an economist. He is the managing director of EcoCap Capital Limited. Did I read it right? Is it EcoCap
Yes.
or EcoCap?
You've said it quite right.
All right.
And good morning to all of you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
You keep yourself busy.
Indeed.
Very good.
Indeed.
Karibu sana. How are they in Zambia city?
Well, in Zambia, they're saying jump over a log, but not over a neighbor's word. That's the problem of the day.
Jump over a log.
But not over a neighbor's word.
Well, I feel like I could take it almost literally. This proverb, because a word, a word is an important. And when you're having a conversation with your neighbor, perhaps about where his land ends and where yours starts, these are important questions.
Or your cattle that have gone over to his side. And are
or
eating
your sheep that are eating on his potatoes or something like this.
Or Okeke's wife who has gone to eat.
That is dangerous territory. That's dangerous territory. But a log, you can. Is that what is in Gigi?
It is a story. It's a story. Ndu will give you that.
I'll give you the story of Okeke's
Give
wife.
the story.
So,
Just now.
Okeke and his wife, for long, she kept saying, look, we've been eating the same thing. Okeke, bring chicken. Okeke said, tomorrow, I promised my wife I'll bring chicken. Went. Tomorrow came, did not bring chicken. Okeke, where is chicken? Okeke said, tomorrow.
I'm bringing.
Is it chicken that's your problem? I'm bringing chicken. That's how Okeke's wife waited. Okeke did. So, fine, it was market day. She cornered him and said, Okeke, where is chicken? Today is market day. He said, in fact, don't worry. When I go and I finish what I'm doing, I will pass by the market and bring chicken. Came home with no chicken in hand. She said, Okeke, I've been begging you for this chicken. Why have you not brought? Let us eat chicken in this house of yours. Did not bring chicken. So the final day, she said, I'm waiting for this man to bring chicken. Let's see what he's going to do. Okeke went out. Okeke came back home. Where is my wife? Did not find his wife. He came out of his house. Look around the yard. Where is my wife? I can't find my wife. Story. They said, check the neighbor's compound. That's how he went to the neighbor's compound inside his friend's house and found his wife doing what?
Eating
Sitting
chicken.
down doing what?
Eating chicken.
Moral of the story, CT, you best bring home chicken.
Keep to your promises.
Absolutely.
When you promise something, deliver.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We are in this at the peak of budget making cycle, Governor.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know what's happening at the national level. And
I would say the tail end.
The tail
we are
end,
the tail end
actually.
of budget making.
Right.
Like 95% of budget making steps are concluded.
What's the 5%? Just
the ceremony, and these days it doesn't even have as much pomp as before. Before, the Minister of Finance would come out of Treasury holding a briefcase flanked left and right by senior officials. He's carrying, and unfortunately it was always he. It should have been a she at some point. He's carrying his briefcase. and escorted under tight security to go and read the budget in Parliament. So it was quite a bit of pomp and ceremony to it. The whole political elite would gather, diplomats included into Parliament. Then the minister in the early days, they would say things like this: from midnight to night, the price of this is going to go up by this. And of course, it was very important, because if you are Nararashi distributors, and you knew for certain that the price of Tusker was going to go up by, let us say, 20 cents, and you had a very good stock, obviously. Anyway, pomp and ceremony. But now the budget, we know what it is. What the expenditure is going to be, what the taxation is going to be, what the borrowing is going to be. So I suppose the minister will merely attempt to placate us. I'm sure he knows as Kenyans, we are a bit irritated now. But,
Do we need the minister's speech in Parliament?
Actually, we don't.
Because there's nothing new that he's coming to say.
In any case, in the law, it's not quite contemplated that the minister is going to make a ceremonial speech. But it is there simply because of the weight of history.
Yeah.
That's how we used to do it. It's symbolic. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just a tradition.
Yes,
It's a tradition. It's symbolic.
Useless as it may be right now.
I suppose the choreography of the state involves ceremony. So perhaps one can allow ceremonies.
Okay.
Some counties, in fact, also do it, where the CEC for finance also goes to the assembly to read, but not necessary, only ceremonial.
Only. Auditor General Nancy Gathungu has rubbished the government's revenue projections as over-optimistic and unrealistic amid fears they may excite insatiable borrowing to finance annual budgets in a damning assessment of the National Treasury's fiscal planning. Ms. Gathungu, in a document to the Budget and Appropriations Committee of the National Assembly, notes that the projections by the Treasury, which the Kenya Revenue Authority struggles to meet, is an indicator of inadequate revenue planning and forecasting. She warns that if the unrealistic projection persists, the government will find it difficult to finance its annual budgets without borrowing locally and externally, effectively escalating the public debt.
It is mischief. We are on air, so I have to find the right wording. It is mischief or bad behavior that unfortunately is also creeping into the counties. It's like this, colleagues. You already know last year what you collected in revenue, say 2.1, 2.2 trillion. What is this magic that you're going to do so that you now collect 2.9 trillion? This growth of 700 billion, where will it actually come from? Because, frankly, it is common sense. Your economy would have to be growing at an astronomical, maybe 20% per year for you to be able to, for that economy to be able to generate
an extra
700 billion. So, we do know the revenue estimates are padded. Why are they padded? Usually because you're trying to show that you have a smaller deficit than you actually do. Why? Maybe because IMF, or even just trying to cheat yourself. Why you should do that is,
Whom are you trying to show?
Yeah, well, I suspect usually IMF, you want to show IMF that you are achieving fiscal consolidation.
Right.
But surely they would know. You're not under the ground. You're on earth, where there are individuals who speak of a different situation. Why would you hide, or why would you show...
In plain sight.
In plain sight, really? Why would you do that? Because IMF, they don't live on Mars. They are here on earth. They would be able to see that this was not the situation. If you're trying to pad things and make it look better than it was, they would then be able to realize.
Well, look, IMF is, or almost all of us, we are almost obligated to believe government. It is not expected that government lies.
Oh.
It's not, even when it happens, you are sort of shocked and dismayed, or you think, did somebody actually make a mistake, or is it I mean, we would not expect government to lie as the ordinary course of business. We wouldn't. I know you look at me
Even when
shock
we
and
see-
horror, but but
So, I mean,
we don't, honestly, we don't expect it like that. We expect government data and to be meaningful.
To be irrefutable, really.
Yes, otherwise, of course, the whole thing comes down. If you cannot look, in the economy, who is the custodian of most data?
it's government.
Is government.
Yes.
The decisions we make in the private sector, like which sector do you want to invest in? Is it growing? Is it stagnant and whatever? You are relying on data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics,
Yeah.
which is part of Treasury.
Yeah.
You honestly expect quite a bit of fidelity. But obviously, when you look at the data and you see year after year, the revenue estimate, KRA can never really quite get to it. Of course, also, even you as an analyst, as an economist, you say, well, what is the estimate based on?
Yeah.
And part of that is I expect growth to be at this level. Therefore. Now, again, you have to be careful about that growth. What is the source of that growth? Because some sources of growth do not translate to taxes. Let me say in simpler English. When you build the SGR, that 300 or 400 billion goes plonk into the GDP number. It's a nice number. But the SGR, that project is not subject to tax. So you cannot expect any tax from it. Tax will come when CT and Ndiritu and others are producing and using this railway to move their production.
Right.
So if CT and Ndiritu are not producing, this major investment here is not going
It's
to
not
yield
generating.
tax. And that has been the thing about Kenya. For the last 10, 15 years, we have had growth, but that growth has come from big ticket infrastructure. So it cannot translate to tax. What do you need to do as government is to create the condition for production to happen so that they
Can use the infrastructure.
this infrastructure. So again, when government says, we must move from 14%, I don't know, to 22% tax to GDP, it's a bit of pie in the sky that is based on a refusal to accept what is the composition of the growth of your GDP.
Yeah.
Now, since really, again, I can see my sister here is looking at me in shock and horror. Well, these men and women in government, we do not believe that they are foolish.
Exactly.
I really don't. Because yesterday when they were not in government, they sounded quite clever. What happened this morning that they got into government? So
You tell us, because you've been in government. What happens to you people when you get into government?
well, actually, that's really the big question for our times, CT. I think it goes to the motivations for why people go into government. I, like many Kenyans, believed people seek political leadership because genuinely they want to go into power or to use that power to create change that is beneficial to society. I later came to learn that I was mistaken. That many of my colleagues in government came into it as a platform for wealth accumulation.
Okay.
So people go into government because they see government as their shop, as their duka. So when, somebody actually said this to me now to my face, that Ndiritu, all this, we don't understand your behavior. We know you have come from World Bank and IFC and so on, but we don't quite understand this behavior because we don't see you interested in the things that others are interested in. So, So that is why. So people, they'll be in the private sector or in these development institutions, they'll be doing certain things, but they go into government for the purpose of trying to get rich. So the decisions they make, the decisions, look, ask yourself, like, let me just come around. County, what are they called? County integration and something centers, and production centers.
KIPES. They're called County Aggregation Integration.
Yes.
Parks.
Very nice title. But tell me, Eric, have you actually identified the businesses that will operate from that space?
So that was the next phase of the conversation.
So why build it?
So every county identifies.
So why build it?
What happens? What value addition happens in your county?
Where is the evidence that what SMEs are lacking in every county
is a park?
Was it demand driven?
Was it data driven?
Where is the evidence? And you can ask a different question. By the way, what happened to the constituency industrial centers? Are they underused? You can ask a different question. What happened to the markets that we built during economic stimulus back in Uhuru time when he was finance minister? How is it that even today many of those markets are not underused? Why would you need to build yet others on top of those? So, that decision can only be driven by other considerations. It cannot be that truly,
Then
you can ask a different question even. Kenya industrial estates started before any of us in this room were born. Where are we with it? Because KIE builds up to date, builds industrial parks. Well, if you have, it's a government parastatal. Why would you need to go and start a new thing?
Ndiritu, so then can't we extrapolate that same question here? Because I think we've been at pains to try and understand why, in the face of an already crippling economy, because that's what we're looking at here, how do we say that the economy is crippling when your people are not able to live with what is currently going on? Access to credit is a problem, debt through the roof at an individual micro and at a government macro level. That is gone through the roof. It's crazy. So now you say, in the light of that, why would you then bring in some tax policies which, if anything, make life even much more unbearable for people? Why would you do that? So for me, there's the answer to the question. Because the interest of these people for which government is supposed to be the vanguard is not front and center in terms of priority. That the reason why people have gone into government to seek work is not to make the country better, but it is to make themselves better.
It is to
Could
make
we not
themselves
answer the question about this tax issue that we're looking at in the same light? Could we not?
It is in the same light, you see, and unfortunately the budgeting process is warped that way, if I could use that term. Because we start on the expenditure side and say, okay, what do we want to spend? And then make the decisions. How will we finance what we have already decided we are going to do? Now, since what we are going to do is driven by how much commission, how much money
you make out of
will the minister or the PS or the other technocrats make out of the whole process, they make, and then we go looking for how to finance. Now, how to finance, you can either tax,
or borrow,
or both. Actually, you're doing both. So we end up taxing the Kenyan, to the extreme, and also borrowing to the extreme in order to finance this wasteful, shall I say, inappropriate expenditure that is driven by individual commercial interests.
It's not criminal.
Well, unfortunately, I would have to say no.
It's not criminal, so it's allowed. It's okay.
No, it's wrong. But is it? You see, it's difficult to prove criminality. Take this county industrial aggregation, whatever. It sounds really nice that you're saying we are building this place so that counties can do industrialization. It sounds very credible. At least if you know how to spin, it sounds like you are saying something useful. But when you peel the onion to say, is this policy really appropriate? And even if you build it with marble and all of this, and CT and Ndiritu and all the other SMEs cannot find 5 affordable shillings to do production inside that building, what will it be for?
It will be a white elephant.
Yeah. So is it criminal? It's difficult to prove criminality in a ordinary. But of course, it is completely wrong policy. But you raise an important point. I have been arguing in recent times that we must find some way to hold to personal responsibility or individual responsibility. In Kibaki time, I think driven mainly by CT and others, some idea had arrived that senior that political responsibility, and you would recall what would happen if something went wrong in your ministry. You would be told to resign.
Yes.
Even, and then people would say, but I did nothing wrong. And the answer was, it's not about you, Eric, individually being the wrongdoer, but something went wrong under your watch. Yeah. So you take political responsibility. I feel like we need to go back to that idea and push it even further to say some of these decisions, we must be able to hold people accountable. For example, when you create burden to the citizen, sort of willfully, you willfully do something that is going to
bring pain.
The question that Ndu asked, yes, and the question which His Excellency responded to, it is true, it is difficult to actually even understand or prove culpability. But then, if you look at the decisions that are made and then you look at the eventuality and the consequences, you can impute criminality. If resources that are meant to cater for simple things like the building of roads or providing health services or ensuring children go to school, if these are misappropriated, then the very things that are supposed to happen don't happen. If agreements that are supposed to be honored between the government and their doctors is not honored, doctors do not go to work, people die. When you talk about the numbers, you don't get the story. When you talk to individuals who've lost loved ones because of it, I know, because this weekend I had a very, very, very close friend who was cremated, and if I look at the problems that they had and how it got to the point where they died, it's because there were no doctors to care for them at a very critical time. In my mind, if you are responsible because of the decisions you have made for the death of individuals, that's now crime against humanity. Criminality is not just imputed, it is proven.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think if we had sort of really forward-looking prosecutors or very public-spirited prosecutors trying to... Because, in fact, let's start with something quite simple, like, say, the way the cancellation of contracts that exist, like you're saying, or not honoring existing contracts, either for service provision or of whatever kind. If you think about the Greenfield terminal here at the airport.
Yes.
So a government makes a decision to cancel, but that decision will cost Kenya,
yes,
several dozens of billions
an
of
amount
shillings.
of money that could have completed the project.
That could have completed the project,
yes,
or could have been used
elsewhere,
yes, in provision of health services.
Yes.
So the persons who made that decision, should we not hold them to some level of personal responsibility? I agree with you, we should. Otherwise, the way the thing is, people honestly continue to make decisions, not because they don't know, but driven, as I said, by individual, commercial type interests. So people are looking for where to make money for themselves or for their cronies or for their contractor friends. And those decisions are not really to the benefit of the rest of the public.
Would you say that the leadership at the very top really does point us into the direction that decision making of this sort, of this nature, can take place?
The tone at the top is the most crucial. What you will see, if you as a political observer, you will see the character, the culture has changed quite considerably. If you look at the last 3 or 4 administrations, that, for example, during President Moi's time, the culture at the top was very sort of gossipy, and government went, so if the president went one direction of the republic, you went there, because if you are not there, your colleagues will get you hounded out, which was very wasteful, because government was always on the move. The character of the NAC administration was a bit more professional, albeit that they got into Anglo-leasing and so on, but generally it was understood. If you are caught with your hand in the till, you are by yourself, and you actually go out. Yeah. When you go into Jubilee, you see less of that, where people accused that your ministry is corrupt, or you yourself or whatever get actually protection, and therefore that culture comes back. And if you look at this administration, I would have to say that culture is now really back,
Full blown.
I mean, parliamentary committees are not even hiding when if who unto you if they are inquiring into something you are involved in, and they'll say, well, wapi was there, openly in the public. They are not hiding it.
But then when it comes to that personal responsibility as the holder of office and as the leader, we see that a lot, that argument being brought out a lot by governors who say, I have a chief officer. I mean, I'm only the governor. The accounting officer is the chief officer. The accounting officer is somebody else. Why are you asking me all these questions? Why should I take responsibility?
Well, personal responsibility or political responsibility, as we called it in NAC times. And again, I would give you just a very old example. One time, many years ago, there was a train crash in India, and the Minister for Transport resigned. I mean, obviously, he was not the managing director of the railway corporation or the chairperson or whatever, but something had gone dramatically wrong under his watch. Yeah. And that is what political responsibility is about. Of course, we ourselves as citizens, we also ought to be punishing. Yet what we do really seem to do is to glorify this bad behavior. If people are accused of corruption, shortly we begin to say, now we retreat to our tribes and we say, huyu ni wetu, mtu wetu ana
ni vita.
So we seem to reward this bad behavior.
I want to come back into budgeting.
Yep.
And as we're looking at national government, we've talked about it a lot, and we seem to be forgetting that counties are also coming up with their own budgets, right?
Well, absolutely.
So there's 400 billion shillings of equitable revenue that will go to counties, and they're also expected to make their own budgets, factoring in own source revenue,
which they have. And the budget cycle is the same both for national and county government. Yeah. You start off at county level, we call it county fiscal strategy paper, and you release it way in January, which is saying, my expectation of my economy is this way. My expectations about my expenditure will be at this level. Therefore, I would expect to raise this amount of taxes. And if you do intend to borrow, you show the borrowing that you're going to undertake. That is followed by a debt management paper. If you do intend, whether you intend to borrow or not, you must present a debt management paper. So if you intend to borrow, you say, okay, I don't intend to borrow. And if you intend to borrow, you say, this is how. That is the case both at national government. Yeah. By this time, you have released the estimates, what we call printed estimates. So even now, if you go to the Treasury website, you will find 5-6 gigantum budget books that show the expenditure items proposed for the coming year. You will find, for example, OP budget is going up. The office of the deputy president, all these budgets are actually going up by 2-3 billion. So they are not really cutting there. Same case with counties. Counties have presented their county fiscal strategy papers, have done whatever. By now, they ought to have released the printed estimates.
Yeah.
And counties will also by now have released their finance bills. And the finance bill is the annual, I guess, taxation law.
Yeah.
But what we should remind the listener is that the finance bill only talks about what is changing. Yeah, it talks about what is changing, not necessarily
repeating everything.
Yeah, you see, like income tax, there's an income tax act.
Yeah.
VAT, there's a VAT act like that. The finance bill shows what is changing, and it's the same in the case of counties. And counties are expected to raise revenues. Now, I want to be careful here because maybe 70%, and look, this is just my own guesstimate, but a large portion of county revenue is not tax in the ordinary sense. It is a fee for service. In the national government, it is what is called appropriations in aid. Just complicated wording, but what it means, when you pay for something.
Yeah.
So most county revenue is a fee for service, and that's a difference between what counties are doing in national government. As a matter of fact, there have been some attempts, for example, to say, can KRA not help counties to increase revenue? And KRA has found it a bit difficult because, you see, KRA has coercive power. KRA says, pay or else. I mean, it's not a debate.
Yeah.
Pay or
else.
And what you have to pay, for example, income tax, or tax on income, or VAT, So, and if you don't pay, they can actually get into your bank account and take out what they think you owe them. Not the same for counties. Take health. Counties raise health, which typically we've been calling Facility Improvement Fund. They raise monies from health by providing health services. People come to your hospital, they buy meds, they get laboratory services. So when you don't have, you can actually see those counties that are doing better on service provision are
raising more money.
In own source revenue. And as a matter of fact, counties, in just another 10 days, I think, we have a conference around this. And 6, 7, 8 governors sharing their experiences, those who have been growing their revenue, sharing their experiences, what actually are they doing to make this revenue go up? And what most have told us, it has to do with service provision. And health is the best example. For counties, by the way, health is 50% minimum, both of expenditure, but also of
revenue.
Comes from health. So it's slightly different. The only taxes counties have are property taxes. But the rest of it is not quite, okay, you could say single business permit. But the rest of it is a fee for service. Yeah.
And many of these taxes are paid yearly, are they not?
Yes, like a single business permit is charged annually, although many counties, I think, do also agree for people to pay by installment. Property taxes, again, are annual. Interestingly, the biggest defaulter in property taxes is the national government.
It doesn't pay counties.
It doesn't pay counties. It's called contribution in lieu of rates. Since government is special, it's contribution in lieu of rates, but they don't pay.
Is it possible for this whole process that we speak of, because obviously, like we say, we're at the tail end. The budget making process began quite a while ago. So then with the announcements by the minister or such, the whole process has taken place. But from what you're saying, it's not void of politics. Is it possible? Should the budget making process not be apolitical?
Well, I mean, that is a really deep debate and question for Kenya. Until 2010, the budget making process was very much driven by technocrats, by Treasury. Remember what I was dramatizing, how the minister would come out with his briefcase.
Yeah.
That process was seen as not really yielding for Kenya, because remember, by January of 2008, when we came near civil war, the question of inequality or inequity, that some parts of this republic had been so left behind, and had been left behind deliberately. And so the genius, if you will, of the Constitution 2010 was to say, look, budgets are about resource allocation. They are about people. I mean, how can that not be politics? So, the National Assembly was given incredible power to determine what actually goes into the budget. Although, unfortunately, the National Assembly promptly surrendered that power back to the executive.
Yep.
But the reality is that the National Assembly can take things out of the budget or add things into the budget. And that was supposed to democratize the budget so that moving forward, no area of Kenya is left behind because of decision makers. And those that had been left behind previously were to be brought up via the Equalization Fund. But we made a mistake there, because the Equalization Fund is managed by the same bureaucracy of Treasury that had led to these inequalities in Kenya. So, it is a political process. It is designed as a political process in the Constitution. So now, of course, now it gets certain expressions like 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, and other things like that, that then people get confused about.
They cloud the whole conversation.
Yes, but it is a political process. It is designed as such. Yeah.
Can that... City keeps asking this question, that even as we are talking about, division of revenue, how much is going to counties, what's the capacity of each individual county in terms of just own source revenue, and how are they faring? You're saying you're hosting a conference soon where governors will come and give their experience. Are they coming up and saying that in my county, looking at studies that have been conducted, we should be able to raise 20 billion shillings, and we've just hit 1 billion now? And,
well, as a matter
and what those challenges are, and how can we get to the 20?
As a matter of fact, they are. The Commission for Revenue Allocation has very helpfully done detailed studies to say what is the potential of Kiambu County, what is the potential of Nyeri, of Garissa, of Kisumu, of all counties of Kenya. The reality up to now, we are not even hitting 30% of potential. So governors will be saying, look, I have moved, say, from 200 million to 1 billion. Maybe my potential is 4 billion. I'm not there yet, but
I'm heading
there, and these are the things that I have done. And remember, because most of the revenue is a fee for service, when counties are succeeding, it means actually citizens are getting
their services.
Better. Well, it means several things. That perhaps people are not helping themselves to the money, but it also probably means that they are getting better and more services. That's why they are paying for them. And that's a great thing for Kenya. But yes, counties are saying, I see what my potential is, and these are the steps I'm taking to get to my potential.
But Excellency,
yes,
Excellency, forgive me for interrupting you, but you have mentioned something very pertinent there. People are not putting into their pockets what they used to. Question, when you say potential, how much is actually collected and how much is actually remitted? I know there's been this talk of, we are all using technology now. Technology can be tinkered with. Technology can be ignored. Okay? the question around understanding where the loopholes are. What CRA have done was done before when we had councils. And it was understood at that time, the very thing you're saying. It's only a third of what was collected at that time that would actually end up in the local authority. 2/3 did not. Are we saying that story has changed?
I would like to believe that story has changed, City. I mean, speaking of my experience when I was governor
which
here.
Which is the exception. We're talking about the rule here.
Indeed. We're talking about the rule, but allow me to start there. We were able to move from around 400 million to $1 billion when I was in office. I have seen many other counties. I've seen Homa Bay particularly do it quite spectacularly within a year, move from about 150 million, 160 million to $1 billion.
What?
Yes.
In a year?
In about a year and a half.
What was
150 million to
$1 billion.
To $1 billion.
That is 850 million shillings.
More, yes.
But my point
that is Muranga, the same case.
It's gone to $1 billion.
It's gone to $1 billion. Now, if you ask those governors, what is it that you've done? What you will find, and Governor Wanga will explain, is that, she has used technology, she has cleaned up the people's systems. It's a whole management process. And it's the same in Muranga. So I would like to think, yes, technology helps. Because, you see, City, when people handle cash, it's a terrible thing. So, for example, what you want to do is to stop people from handling cash. Let them pay online.
Yeah.
And now, with mobile money, everybody can pay online. And those kinds of things remove the possibility of people pocketing money. Yeah.
Governor, it's always a pleasure having you here. Ndiritu Muriithi, former governor of Laikipia County and currently the managing director of EcoCap Capital Limited. He's an economist. He's been our guest. We'll be talking about the finance, the budget making process. He'll be back soon.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.